Call to order the Library Building Committee. It's Thursday, August 29th, 2024, 3 p.m. This is a hybrid meeting in Old Town Hall, which is located at 1111 Somerset Avenue, Dayton, Mass. The listing of matters on those are those recently anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be for discussion to the extent permitted by law. I'll ask for a roll call of the members of the Building Committee, starting with Ron, please.
Ron Connor, co-chair.
Pat Gales, Historical Commission.
Mark Crockett, moderator.
Ken Pacheco, co-chair.
Jonathan Gale, ADA coordinator. Mark Tavares.
James Agia, building official.
Call to order the meeting of the Dayton Public Library Board of Trustees. Ron Connor, chair.
Yeah, Mike trustee, Rita Russo, trustee.
I ask that we stand for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Update on data projects work stream, starting with the building infrastructure. Yeah. So Plan B has been busy.
They've been very busy, yes. I have pictures. I plan to show them up on the TV, but for some reason I talked for that thing. So we talked last week, I will recap because Pat wasn't here, because people weren't here. So thus far, Plan B has been working there for 2 weeks. And we'll start with the rear of the building. The accessible restroom wall has been relocated so that it's compliant. The wing wall, which gives privacy to that accessible restroom, has been shortened. The library director / storage area, I'm not sure what you call it in that room. Staff office. The new subfloor has been put in, and the privy infrastructure has been removed. It's put away, so I would like some direction as to where you would like those stored. It was taken off somewhat intact.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, and then that area was strengthened, repurposed so that you could use it for book storage or heavy equipment storage.
Shelf, yeah.
Exactly. The small old access area to the stage, or what was the altar, has been infilled with an existing door. So that is now a solid panel, non-operable. But that's something that we kept all of the woodwork in place, and we use the door, just cut it down to fit. The stairs that were temporary leading up to the new children's area have now been converted to a compliant stairway. The ramp has been strengthened and finished, and the wall that separates the ramp area from the main library is complete. The only thing missing in all of those areas is electrical and plumbing infrastructure. That's not done. So finished plaster can't be done until those things are completed. The exterior true front entrances have been worked on extensively. Have you gone by to see those at all?
No.
Okay. So at the last meeting, in your absence, the picture that you provided me is sort of what we ran with, and
Okay,
we're trying to duplicate what's in the photo.
okay,
So the only difference is that we used AZAC, which is a material that won't rot, in lieu of the wood that would have been used to make it period correct. But all of the bases are boxed out. We're picture framing them with bed moldings, so it looks like a raised panel, all in AZAC. The stairway has been widened to full width, which is what it was originally. Again, a compliant stairway. The short wing walls that are depicted in the elevation view you gave me have been constructed.
okay.
The handrails will be put on top of that. And that, again, that's all AZAC as well. So I'd like to get the opinion of the committee on a couple of things. But that in a nutshell is where we are till today. It may seem like not a lot of work, but it's a lot of work, so.
Can I ask for the children's area? I know we've talked and sometimes ad nauseum about accessibility and the ramps and so forth. And we have the interior one
Mhm.
that goes up to the children's area. But from that children's area and that crafting area and the staff office, and then the area, obviously the crafting area will be used for, meetings and so forth too. What's the emergency evacuation point from there to outside?
There are three to choose from. There's a rear exit that is not accessible. There is the way you entered that area, which is accessible. And that will lead to what I understand the committee's take is to two accessible or two accessible exits, one at the front of the building and one by the staff. Staff.
So in that area, if there were any kind of emergency for evacuation, fire, even smoke, am I correct in saying that to get to the two accessible entrances, you would have to be able to use the stairs or the ramp to get away from that area? There is no back way you could go out that is accessible.
If you were non-ambulatory,
Yeah.
correct.
That's the concern that I still have. Because,
So let me ask you a question,
Sure,
Jonathan.
go
If the code doesn't have a concern for it, which the
But I-
code is. Let me finish, let me
Go ahead,
finish.
Jonathan, go ahead.
Let me finish.
Jim,
If the code does not have a concern, and I mean that in a very respectful
No, I know
way,
you
the
do.
code takes into consideration all different types of scenarios. If the code doesn't call for that, I can understand your personal reasons why, but why would the town absorb that type of a cost?
the CMR code does call for two accessible entrances and exits, but it doesn't, on one level, it doesn't say where they need to be, but it talks about having two. We do have two. So the 521 CMR code does talk about that because there's more than one entrance. When it's more than one, you have to have two accessible. My concern is that if something happens in that back area at all, we still don't have any way to evacuate a person who is not ambulatory. I would rather, and I'm really serious with this, I'm not suggesting that we go ahead and we don't have the money to do anything with that back door and build a ramp or do anything like that. I understand that and I respect that. But I am concerned about what happens if there's an emergency evacuation and we do have somebody back there who's not non-ambulatory. We can't get them out. That's to me, and I'm not speaking personally, but to me ethically, from my position as the ADA coordinator, that's a compliance issue and it's a liability issue. It's a huge liability issue.
So I respect what you're saying. However, if Dayton is not in violation of the code, then I see no reason why we should go over and above, especially with the costs, to try to check the box because you feel uncomfortable. However, I will say this,
Okay.
as a human being, there's no way in hell anyone is gonna walk out of a burning building and leave someone who's not ambulatory in a space if they can't get out any other way than down the stairs. They will be taken down and out safely. I don't know anyone in this room or anyone in this town who would let someone perish because there was no ramp there.
And look, even for me as a person who's blind, if there was a way for me to drag a person, I would do it. I agree with you. My concern is still the same in terms of that area and whether we are compliant or not. Because I think my concern is that because of that area and because of the building being constructed the way it is, we may not be compliant. So there's two different ways to look at it. One is, and I respect as the building commissioner, you do amazing work with everything that you're given. You know I think that. I'm not questioning you as the building commissioner. I'm questioning what I'm supposed to be looking at as the ADA coordinator and ADA code. And from my perspective and from my interpretation of the code, we have to have something there. We have to have some way to evacuate people who are not ambulatory, whether it's some sort of a lift that's outside that door that can open for exit only. We have to have something in place to be able to do that. I can't, in my good conscience, as a person who is the ADA coordinator, I honestly feel if we're not going to do it, and if we don't even look into it, then as the coordinator, I need to submit a letter to this committee saying that I think we should have done it. And I'm concerned about compliance and I'm concerned about liability. And I will do that as the coordinator, only because if anything ever did happen whether it's me as the coordinator or a future coordinator, or this committee, the building committee, or the trustees, the coordinator isn't going to be held accountable or liable for what should have been. And I have to look at it that way. I would rather have someone come in who is familiar with the compliance backwards and forwards, that it doesn't draw any attention to the town, and I've said this before, they do it all the time. I think to have somebody come in and prove me wrong would be the best news we could all get, but I would rather be proven wrong.
Jonathan, I'm going to suggest that you write that letter to the committee, but we've discussed this numerous times. It's almost part of it every meeting. And I suspect, I never took a vote, but I suspect that the committee is content with having 2 ramps on the building. I think we only need 1. We decided we're going to go with the second one. And we discuss this all the time. I don't think anybody here on the committee's opinion has changed on your concerns. So I would suggest.
I'll just write the letter then.
Write the letter.
And I'm not angry about it.
Let me continue, Tom. I just suggest you write the letter so that we can continue with the meeting and discuss other important things. Moving on.
Could you give, I'm not familiar with the code. And so it would just help me to be able to read the code, because I've been in building environments where it would be far more complex to get somebody out of, for example, a second floor, than it would be to get them out of the library. So I'm just trying to understand what the code says.
I would recommend, Jonathan, that you submit your letter with all of your regulatory.
Absolutely, yes. I know Mark has it, and he provided it to everybody a couple meetings ago again, too.
I think you should.
That's what I provided was, it was that email you sent me that cited the specific code, but it wasn't a letter.
No, and that was, in that code, it was just the recommendation of MOD and AAB for the 2. But my concern, and I agree, we've met the part of the code for the 2. My concern is having something in place for that area, just in case. I'm not disagreeing that we haven't met part of the code. That's not where I'm going with this.
And I know what you said before was that the evaluation is at no cost to us. And if they suggest the additional means of exit, that we may be, because of the age of the building, we may be able to get variance on that.
Correct.
I just want to make sure that everyone is real clear about all that, because I really sit on the fence with this. I see this from both perspectives.
Okay, I'll leave it. I'll have a letter for the next meeting.
Okay.
And then you guys can decide what you want to do. I just know for me in the position I'm in as part of a member of this committee and why I was asked to be on here, I need to cover, cross my T's and dot my I's.
I understand.
One of the things I find confusing is the fact that there seems to be 2 codes that we're following, or.
Actually, if I cited all the codes that we follow, your head would spin.
But you know, regarding this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's 2 codes. There's the state building code, and then there's the architectural access for CMR that we follow. So those 2 codes work in unison together. So, and the confusing thing that I think people, and Jonathan, I think you even confuse it when you speak sometimes, is that the architectural access board is Massachusetts state accessibility regulations. The ADA regulations are completely separate. Those are federal regulations. So, and I understand you're the ADA coordinator, there are some similarities, but when you look for a plan set to be compliant in the state of Massachusetts under this circumstance, then we look at the building code and the architectural access board. Most of the ADA and AAB are similar, but there are some differences. So I agree with the chairman. I think there's enough said about that.
I'll
We have
just-
other business to
I'll
take
provide
care of.
what I believe is necessary, and whatever you guys want to do.
Jim, you want to elaborate on that brace we talked about? That Pat wasn't here.
Yeah.
I watched the meeting.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
I did. Silly me, I know. I was like,
It's good to
okay.
know, actually. I thought I was the only one.
No, there's nothing else on TV, so.
Oh, it is.
So
Nothing more exciting than me.
Yeah. I thought I could share this screen share this, I can't. This is the wall that was constructed in front of the ramp that leads to the children's area.
Okay.
So the wall is pretty tall. Yes, it's very tall. And that was to accommodate Mark's shelving requirements that were needed. So the wall in itself was well built. It's a very strong wall, but the end down here is the tallest. It's almost 8 feet tall. So that end could use a brace in order for me to feel comfortable that that wall won't be impacted if it were hit horizontally. Plus stand the test of time, so to speak. So my suggestion at the last meeting was we could put a brace from the top of this wall to the existing wall that separates the main room from the children's area. And maybe we can come up with something ornamental that works with the building. There was some discussion about maybe welcome to the children's area, things like that. But I'm thinking wrought iron or something black steel that, you know.
I'm thinking something that would blend in with the, you know, the woodwork and all of that, because I listened to that and I'm like, well, you can't really be putting up flashing signs or whatever, because that'll take
Right.
away from the aesthetics of the historical room.
Right.
So if you have something that is gonna complement what's in there, I think that would work.
Right, so behind that, you can't see it, the beadboard has been repurposed. The walkway itself looks phenomenal. It's still a bit unfinished because we have electrical infrastructure and whatnot to come in, but it will represent, the ramp will represent the building well. I just wanted to put out some thought into that brace before we have something fabricated, so, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay,
Jim, did you get a cost yet on the material for the outside ramp you were talking about?
I did not, I'm still waiting for it. Yes. So, I don't know how you feel about that. I mean, you know, it's not something that needs to be done right this second, but I don't know if you have anything in the archives, anything that could be repurposed.
I don't know, we could look across the street and see if there's anything over
I
there.
like repurposing things that had a future or a past life, so
Yeah,
Did you rule out the column, using one of those columns?
I did.
Okay.
All right.
so the columns, we were able to salvage 6 of them,
6.
Yeah.
Yeah, 6,
because we talked about that at a historical commission meeting.
right.
And not putting the ones that are deteriorated so bad back.
Right. So right now, the plan is to put 3 back on each side.
Yeah.
Similar to the way they came out. But the reason why I brought this today is these were originally at the top. But the way that the columns have deteriorated, they need to be cut down. We had some discussion today. We have 10 of these. We don't have 12, we have 10. So there was some discussion about putting one at the top and the bottom, which will help keep the length closer to where it was originally,
Right,
because we have to cut the columns down in order to get to good material. Problem is, we're missing 2 of those. We need 2 more of those. So I didn't know if the committee felt it was prudent to try and do that, or do we live with what we have and just keep the others as backups to use somewhere else, or do you want me to try to get these? I know we can have them made. There's not so much to do.
It's not that hard to make.
No, you want to take a one
No, I just, on the legs, I think I can do that pretty easily.
oh, Ron, that's so nice of you, love.
You don't want one set up.
Don't let him hear us.
But yeah, I guess you could cost it.
I would cross out, you know, making the 2
Okay,
to replicate it, and then everything would be uniform.
yeah, I agree. And, you know, I think it would be a way to try and keep it as original as it was, although we're changing things up a little bit, but.
You have to realize a lot of things were changed on that building, you know, when you look at the picture, that was from the 1912 bicentennial book. They'd already changed the porches at some point in time, the steps and even the railings, you know, so if we can get it back to what it originally was, I think it'd be really, you know.
Which is closer to that picture you said,
Right.
correct? Yeah, well, that's what we're striving.
Yeah, because you know, what do they call them, the balusters,
Mhm.
you know, in between, those had changed. They were like just rounded things, and the ones in the picture are a little more detailed, so.
Right. I haven't tackled that discussion yet because I wanted to get further along with the repurposing of the existing ramp, the new ramp design, et cetera, so we'll rehash that at a future meeting.
And you have to realize too, on that building from, you know, when it was built to now, there are towers that are missing from it. You know, because it had the
there are.
towers, so there's already been
Right.
things removed from it that make it historical. I don't know if we want to rebuild the towers, that would be really cool.
Not in the budget.
I mean, I'll advocate for that.
Wasn't there a bell tower?
Yeah,
Yeah, and the ventilator also has
Right.
fire on it.
right.
The ventilator was a functional part of the building, so, yeah. Anyway, okay, so that being said, I think they're doing a great job. I do have their first payment request. It's for 2 weeks worth of work. I think I tallied up, it's 167 hours of work. I have been by, and Mark's been by, you know, I concur with what they've sent in. The hourly rates were already under contract from a 2022 contract when they did the siding. And then the materials, they were able to mock up materials up to 35%. Brian has chosen to mock them up by 10%. So any material that he buys, his books, he's only upcharging us 10%, So the bill that I have in front of me, and I want to talk more about this in a second. There were, the first week, there were, let's see. Should have tallied this before, I'm sorry. Or just under 60 hours of work the first week. And the second week was almost a full 40-hour week for 3 people. So with the hourly rates for it starts at $100 an hour for a laborer, carpenter tender, $115 for a carpenter, and $120 for a supervisor. The total cost, materials were $2,573 with a 10% upcharge. So the total cost for the 2 weeks is $21,240.71. Before we take this to the committee for a vote, we met with the town accountant and the town administrator. As far as contracts are concerned, they are completely satisfied with what we have on hand. However, they would like the committee to come up with a dollar amount that we authorize to expend with Plan B. Up to a certain point, so that at least the town accountant knows we have the funds to cover the costs. So what I did was I took MMT's cost estimates and I tried to go through it and see what we were going to use Plan B for. And right now I come up with about $125,000. I don't think that'll be the extent of it. I think Plan B is going to do more than what MMT calculated. But I think that would be a good baseline for us. You can lower it if you like, that's fine. But, you know, every 2 weeks, if we're gonna be spending $20,000, that gets us, you know, a couple months down the road, which should pretty much finish up their work.
Didn't we have a savings in a way that would sort of help this by not having NFT do round 2, continue the process?
No.
No, that wasn't part of the budget, which I think I asked at the last.
And MMT's phase 2 proposal was not initially accounted for in the initial budget plan.
One thing I will tell you is MMT's cost estimates did take into account the labor savings overall with the work that the students did. So their cost estimates, their top number includes that savings. And we're knocking right on the door of our money that we have available. So we're still gonna have to make sure that we do the best we can to make sure this thing stays on budget. We're not whistling Dixie yet. So. But as far as the work, you've seen the work.
Oh, yeah,
I've seen the work. The work is exceptional. It's exactly what we want. We're not settling for anything. In fact, I think in some way, with the AZAC, which wasn't originally intended, we're gonna get a much better product. So I feel comfortable. How about
The way
you,
you
Ron?
describe it sounds like.
I'm always anxious about budget. I just like to say, I think it would be helpful for me because we've got all these different pockets of money and I have some awareness of what's coming out of where. But even if every month we got a spreadsheet that said, you know, this account, this is what's left in this account, this is what this account is for. And we've got Mike's original spreadsheet, which I have with me, but I'm now looking for what have we spent out of each account, so we have an idea of what's left. I'm sure Mark, you probably.
Yeah, I really gave an updated one.
Yeah,
That
so
I mean,
it would- and then what, what that account is allocated to specifically, some are discretionary. I feel better having that and knowing that we get that on a monthly basis and.
Yeah. That makes sense.
We're trying to do that because, so that would help.
So what other construction needs to be done?
So the two front entranceways are not complete. Those will go into next week. And then the biggest construction project is the ramp. And I'm in discussion with Mr. Patch, the owner of Plan B, as to, how this is gonna materialize and whether or not we can fit this within the budget scope. So hopefully by next meeting, I'll have that answer and then we can proceed.
does that 125,000 take into account the exterior ramp?
Some of it,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Some of it. It does not include the railings. This would be all the framing, the finish work, the decking, but not the railings.
Okay.
I'm hoping that the highway department tackles the rails. They did a great job next door to COA. I don't know if anyone's seen those.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. So that will help us a lot.
And does this include the second ramp?
Yes. I've already talked to Mr. Patch about repurposing the second ramp. Yes.
Jim, did you want to talk about the doors at the base of the interior ramp?
I do.
Okay.
Yes, I just see one.
Yeah.
Yeah, they seem to be,
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
So I took some pictures today of that. For those of you who haven't seen the new stairway, that's a good shot of it.
Nice.
Yeah.
And it'd be railings, you said?
Yes, yeah.
So do we have, sort of jumping ahead maybe to community updates, but do we have a place on the web, Mark, on the website where we can post some of these photos for updates? I know you're doing a newsletter, but will there be a place, because I think we're starting to accumulate photos, ones you shared with Board of Selectmen, the ones that Jim has.
I mean, there is a place on the website for new library updates.
Right.
And I put the link to the selected video on there.
Good, yeah.
But we can, right now, the only photos on there are those artistic renderings. So I can
Yeah,
probably replace
I
that.
think it'd be good to start doing
Something
that.
real.
I just happen to be on the Swansea Public Library building website. We've got a drone photo.
Oh, that's right, yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
But I think the more we can do that and people want to check, they can do that.
We can't fly a drone in this town, it'll get shot down.
But I'm just saying,
And they also have $18 million, right?
yes, the drone is just, I just look at it and I go, I'm sure that a drone would help us anyway, because they're like tripling the size of the footprint, it seems. Anyway, yeah,
That's crazy.
it is.
So this is the area at the base of the ramp. So that picture I showed you of the wall, this is the end of it that you're seeing here.
Yeah.
So this would be entrance to the ramp area that goes to the children's room.
Mhm.
So last week I had mentioned that this door leaf that leads into the, what used to be the main entrance to the building, is sort of, in my opinion, impacting the flow, so to speak, and it sort of makes this area somewhat claustrophobic. So, that's the door that I'm talking about. So even if we did it permanently closed, it's still an accessible doorway, but it just appears tight in such a big area. So
That's the door that you and I talked about with the bathroom right there.
Yeah, so it impacts the bathroom door. It can't be held open. So that's with the door open. You can see how much wider it makes the space. So I'm just looking for some input from the committee as to I hate to take the door off the hinges and put it somewhere and store it and not showcase it, but I'm really at a loss because that door can't be a fixed open like we're gonna do to the entrance doors of the foyer because it impacts the bathroom door.
And what's your opinion on it being fixed, closed?
That
Makes
The
it-
bathroom.
makes it pretty tight.
No.
Yeah, it makes it pretty tight. It's still compliant.
Yes,
It's
this is
accessible.
gonna say tight in what way?
It just feels tight because you're in such a big room. Now, maybe it won't feel that way with all the shelving in it. Maybe I'm overthinking it a little bit. So I wouldn't want to make any harsh decisions until we get further along, but I just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention, okay?
What would you do? Would you take the door off?
I think the only two options are take the door off or move the door to the bathroom so that this door can be held open and affixed in the open position like the rest of the two doors up front. But obviously, I don't really want to move a door that doesn't need to be moved
Right.
unless we have money in the budget to do it, so, yeah. So that's just something for us to think about, going into the future.
Anybody have any other questions for Jim?
How to work?
So the ramp, we're not doing concrete, we're gonna do wood on that.
We're thinking about that, yes.
The wood would be a better match to the building than a concrete ramp.
Almost like we talked before last
Yeah.
week's meeting, that's exactly what I said.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought you would be okay with that, but I need to make sure that we come up with a ramp that's gonna stand the test of time
Right, right.
and have longevity. So that's what I'm working through with Mr. Patch
Okay.
now. So AZAC would be great, because if we skirt it with AZAC doesn't rot, but it's very expensive. So
Yeah,
the other thing we talked about is, one of the reasons it was concrete is because it's on the driveway side of the building now. Well, either way, it would be the driveway side. We thought about putting granite posts like we did for the signs here, to help protect it, which again would be somewhat period correct. So I thought aesthetically it would be much better for the building.
yeah,
And from a budget perspective, we think it'll be better than concrete. That's what we're trying to figure out now.
And maintenance would be equivalent or better with wood?
Well, it's funny you say that, because normally you would say concrete would be much easier to maintain. But I'm finding with the concrete that is coming out of the plants today, it's not standing up to the winters as much anymore.
That's, I would have guessed
Yeah.
that concrete is not as good
Right.
as that's what I've seen.
So
Cracks.
I'm thinking that wood, we can replace a wooden deck. But to repair a wooden, spalled or
Yeah.
chipped concrete from salting, that would be difficult.
So I think it would make the case that wood is actually at least
Right.
better, at least equal, so if not better to
Right.
maintain.
Okay, moving on to the budget.
Well, I received good news today, in that I reached out, regarding a $200,000 HVAC grant. I was honest, I said, look, we're not gonna have this done by the end of December. We don't even have plans for it, we haven't got to bid with it, it's just, it's not gonna happen. We applied for extension. And they said, oh, no, it was basically, that date's not hard and fast. You submit when you submit, and then when you submit, then we'll take care of extensions. I said, okay, great, you send me something in writing so we can be on record. And because the last thing I want to have is, I talked to, and I was like, oh, so an email was I immediately received an email after that conversation, and that was forwarded along, so it's on record that we should be good to go as far as that goes. So that was a bit of a worry.
So not that I expect or I'm losing sleep that we need it, but would that extension go beyond the fiscal year, which would be end of June?
That's a good question. I'm not sure.
Based on, I read the email, it seemed like, do what you gotta do.
Yeah, that's what it's.
I guess you would have said.
Yeah, she basically said, when you submit invoices next year, we will talk about an extension. So it's like, we don't even, it's like, right, a late invoice comes in, it seemed to me, they were gonna be like, okay, whatever, we'll just take care of it then.
Good.
So they seemed very, I was optimistic we would get the extension. But that's awesome. That was good news. Yeah, that's big news.
It's the state,
$200,000.
the state agencies sometimes get pressure from legislators that things don't, so I think they just know how to be flexible.
Okay. So that's the biggest update.
What is the status of the HVAC plans?
So I reached out to attempted to reach out to the engineer that the town administrator suggested. That did not work out. So now I'm waiting my contact from North Star, who is our service rep, who's a very reputable company, the owner's away, he's out of the country, when he comes back next week, he's gonna connect with me and see if he can put me in touch with his engineer. So I think that's how we're gonna go. So it looks like, maybe within a month, we can get at least moving with an engineer to get a new design done. I'm taking it, we decided we want to explore that option. We were not happy with the single unit. Yeah, right. Okay. Okay.
Grants and
Sorry, is that all we had on budget?
It kind of bled over to grants because the grant got extended.
Okay.
Did you find out any more yet, and I'm not gonna remember which pot of money it was that said for, the old library, and the address of the old library that someone had written.
The
Did you get any update on that?
Yeah, that's.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Sorry, number five.
So just sticking with budget in general, because I'm assuming it's going to be with Mr. Brown, I'll put it here under budget. When I spoke to Sue the other day, and I was going over my budget for COD as well, the time that I put into here to be at these meetings and review any documents like the plans and so forth, that's supposed to come from my grant. So that's 16,000 and change left. So I'm giving her my timesheets and she will break it out and send it to the trustees, around similar to before, but the costs are certainly not significant.
So this is the ALA.
Yes.
Accessibility.
Yeah. Yeah, and that comes from the administrative side of that. So I just want to make you aware of that. She asked me to just remind everyone that for the trustees, she'll send you that next week, I assume.
Okay.
So you'll have it, to be able to look at it and hopefully approve it.
We're meeting, the 12th.
Okay.
Or we can vote on it here, but
fundraising. Anything else?
Yeah, I mean, no, basically, it bled over from the budget, but we got the extension on the grant.
so
We haven't connected yet.
just have a question about grants and fundraising, which is what are we writing grants and fundraising for? If we're within budget, I'm more concerned about messaging and optics. When people hear we're doing grant writing and we're doing fundraising, I don't want the message to be, we think we're gonna run short. You get my point. If we're doing fundraising, like.
Because I mean, if anyone asks, we're gonna say, well, I mean, right now we are.
Because we can't give back money,
Yeah.
that we can't give back. We give back any money that we have in grants because we did fundraising. Why would we do that? So I was maybe part of a lot of your discussion, but it's more about if we've talked about doing fundraising. If we do that, what are we raising funds for that we don't already have money?
Because another question would be, aren't you already doing that through the Friends?
Well, yeah.
Because people do not separate
Yes.
Friends, library trustees, building committee, they just say fundraising. So they'd say, oh, but you're already fundraising for the library. But
Yes, yeah, and we don't even know if the Friends rate, the golf tournament is successful as last year, where that money would go. Because we may not have a need, then it may just go to library programs instead of the building. So you get my point. We don't need to belabor it here, but I just want to make sure that we're
I
thinking
think
about that.
the answer a little bit, in a general way, from my perspective, is resources, technology, equipment, and services. Period. And an example would be when Jim finds out the cost for the decking, we may find out that that's significant. And that may put a budget constraint on us. So we may be wanting to look at a grant as part of a grant, writing in the cost of that material.
Yeah.
I
So.
think grant writing is different than the fundraising, if everyone's always like, yeah, go for the grants, you're almost obligated to do that. If there's a grant that's gonna apply to your project, you're obligated to go for it. Fundraising is separate,
Yes.
because you're asking people for donations or sponsorships. There's also, people have already donated, like for the large book plaque, they want this plaque for the family's already donated the money for that, to the library. So you have those kinds of things too that you could use, but
And I think that's how this conversation really
Yeah.
got going, this was raised at a few years back. Someone donated
Right,
to have their name on a plaque, for shelving for large print books.
right,
And that's how it got raised, and, I think the question was, how do we approach that for anyone else who was interested, how do we get the word out that it's something we're doing, how do we handle it, what does the plaque look like, what do we do? I believe that's how this
Right.
particular topic got put
you're
on,
right.
the ensuing, the agenda, some of the ensuing ones after that.
I just think it's important that this isn't going to core costs of the construction and renovation, et cetera, but it's to value added things, but I like fundraising because it says it sends a message about community support, the level of community support. And that's important in and of itself. I think we have talked about having a committee, so maybe that's something for the committee to chew on rather than for us to do it here.
I do want to point out, I just finished not too long ago the annual ARIS report for the libraries and submitting the application next month for annual state aid for libraries. So anything that comes in, I'm really planning on using most of that to be for the project. Just to have. I still have some Meg money from 2024, 2023, and fiscal year 2022 that I'm really stockpiling. I don't really want to touch until after this whole project is done, just so that we have a good stockpile. So there's always that, and more state aid hopefully should be coming. It's just a matter of sending the application, which we're gonna do.
So, but we don't need money to get this project completed right now.
We hope we don't need to.
Yeah.
And we're all gonna work hard to make sure you don't. Anything that.
So what I like about the Meg state aid money is that it's completely unrestricted. So I can save it in the bank, so to speak, for this particular project. But then when the project comes and goes, we didn't need it, it's totally unrestricted and I can use it for the other programmatic needs and so on and so forth.
I'm not gonna take full responsibility, but one thing that we haven't discussed in this project, but hasn't been part of MMT scope and even Granite City scope, is the outside of the building, the parking areas, the landscape.
Right.
The pit out back that I'm sure you're never going to use. So, I don't know if you want to use that as an opportunity to tackle the outside of the building. It should have been part of this project, but I think everybody was concerned about just getting the building renovated, that we kind of neglected the outside a little bit, so to speak. That doesn't mean we're gonna have an unsightly building.
Right.
It just means that we haven't really focused on that. So you certainly can use funds to do that stuff, and that has the most impact visually, people driving by, because if they see, a well landscaped or maybe a flower garden or something like that, then maybe that could be part of the fundraising.
I think we talked about the Aggie School being part of that landscaping project. Right? Yeah, I think we separate out the nice to do from the needs to do. And if we're covered for the needs to do, then we talk about the nice to do.
Yeah, if we're coming for the needs to do, that means more money.
Also, you'll always have Eagle Scouts looking to do projects. That might be a project some Eagle Scout might want to take on.
We never talked about lighting in those parking lots.
Most of the lighting that we discussed is going to be off the building. No parking lot lamps, no lighting. We're in a residential neighborhood. We don't want to put a parking lot in someone's backyard. So all the lighting that has been discussed internally will be looked at by you is off the building. So offset illumination is what we call
Maybe like more soft lighting.
it. Right. But no lamp posts, none of that.
Yeah, because that question did come up. Friends of me were asking about that. In the past, that's been a hangout place, just FYI. It's a nice, easy corner. There's always a lot of kids in that neighborhood. So they like to congregate on the steps and, just.
We'll have a nice team room.
And the interesting thing is how many kids are living in there.
Yeah.
I know certain areas, there aren't any kids on my street, in my area.
Right.
So,
Yeah, the neighborhood has changed again.
So are you saying that when you were a kid, you hang around on the
don't
steps?
tell my mom and dad.
So, and you started it, right?
No, Oh.
You wanna come down and sit on the steps, make me feel okay?
Yeah. Oh, no, this is not groove right.
That's how you tell them, it's just like, oh, no, this wasn't what it was like when I was a kid. No. This can't be a story. No. No. It's not from square one.
And this meeting has been recorded.
Yes.
It's too late now.
We can talk a little bit.
Do we have,
A lighting agreement that will do for metrics and all that for the site.
do we have something that would be Granite City? Yeah, Granite City, do all that, yes. Make sure we have the right lumens and whatnot.
Okay.
So much, that's a very question.
Didn't even know there was such a thing.
I didn't even put the questions on legitimate stuff.
The things we learned.
Photometric sound, yeah.
And also too, and this also kind of, friends, maybe tangentially, it's when we get in there and open the library and actually start functioning, I'm probably gonna be like, oh, we need something here. Why did I think of that? I mean, so that's, if I knew what it was, I'd get it now.
Right.
But there are going to be things that, oh, I should have taken care of this, but it's just not gonna know until we're in there and open, so.
So then keeping that in mind of taking care of things too, while we're throwing things, entering, what about security? What about an alarm system? Or,
I believe we voted on the alarm system. Yeah.
We did.
okay, I didn't remember that. Cameras?
Cameras have not been discussed, no.
Is it prohibitively expensive to put one, at least a camera on the door area or the parking lot area?
Today with the new technology, I would say that when we get towards the end of the project, if we have money in the budget, we can discuss it. Most of that stuff is wireless today.
Trustees discussed cameras for the old building and didn't want to do it, so we have to revisit that.
Mr. Chen, point of order, I know we're running down here. Is this, can we vote on this tonight, or does this have to be put on for the next meeting? This is Plan B's bill. Invoice.
Yeah, it is on the agenda.
It's on the agenda.
Oh, it's on the agenda.
Yeah, number 6, agenda 6, agenda nine.
She took my. Oh, okay.
Isn't that what we used to do?
Okay.
We have the updates and information.
I've been in contact with the town's PR firm. They want to do monthly sort of blasts and posts with images and updates. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to have a phone conversation with them first so they understand all the background. And then go from there. I'll just give them a monthly, bullet point photo update, but I want them to have as much background as they can, to do their first post. So they're not like doing things without context.
Anything else on that?
And so the reports that they do, I don't see a need for the committee or the trustees.
Yeah, it seemed, I got the impression it was going to be like a social media blast sort of post. Yeah.
Yeah, great. I'm fully comfortable with that.
Formation of subcommittees, talked about this at the last meeting. We wanted more people to be here. We talked about a fundraising committee and that was just brought up. So I think we are still going that direction. And the fundraising committee can do Jim out what they want to do and how to go about it.
That's a good idea.
Are there other committees that you were thinking of, subcommittees, or is it just,
Well, at some point we'll need the community outreach and education piece, like how do we, that sort of fits in with Jonathan and I, you've mentioned about doing the accessibility and public forum.
We do need to do one of those, that is in the grant.
So I think that all falls under that, whether we can just do it without, I think at some point when we start talking about opening and things of that sort, we want to have if we're comfortable with our outreach plan working with the town's PR firm, then that's great. I just want to make sure the public feels like they're kept informed of progress, because they can't see inside the building, and that's, I think we hear that. How do we know things are happening? Like great pictures, great work's happening.
Didn't the newsletter just go out?
I did, I said on my notes, it was this yesterday.
Yeah.
I wanted to send it out earlier, but my September speaker canceled on me. I had to find a replacement. I had to call some guy up the street to do a replacement talk.
Because
That was pretty good.
Because I forwarded it to as many people as I could remember who've been asking me about library updates, when are we going to get more updates? And the fact that you have the link to the presentation that you did is very helpful. But people want to know.
And I think when when Mark and I sit down next couple of weeks and put together our access seminar workshop later in the year, we could obviously have some things in there about
Yep.
updates and where we're at the same time. That might also get more people out to it.
Yep.
But my question, so for a committee for community fundraising, will that also incorporate grants or is that separate?
Grants would be separate.
I would agree. I would see this subcommittee as sort of the, would appeal to the people who had previously donated to that, plaque to be in the large print shop, things like that. I see it focused more towards that sort of fundraising.
So do we want to form a fundraising committee? Anybody interested in joining the fundraising committee? I'd be interested about it. I'd be-
I'll join the committee as long as it meets after 6 o'clock.
I'm interested, but I think we need to be back and forth about what are we fundraising for. I just need to have some ideas and come back here and say, here's what we could raise funds for that they're not even otherwise covered. Be creative things and whatever.
Yeah, we have second thoughts on it now. After 6 o'clock, you said?
Yeah. It's getting near bedtime.
It's not too far.
We're after 6 o'clock now, aren't we? Oh, you meant PM.
Well, somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere.
All right, yeah, so I'm in,
Oh, man.
Ken, Mark,
Roxanne.
I'll be into the record. Yeah.
all right, great.
So I think we're called for a vote to form.
Do either of the trustees want to be on that committee?
I'm
happy.
interested in the community outreach and
Okay,
education,
because
that's
you
my
both-
thing.
You both have that committee.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
trustees.
trying to start it.
All right, good, all right, just want to make sure. I'll fundraising.
So I'll entertain a motion to form a subcommittee for fundraising.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? If not, let's call for a vote, starting with Ron.
Ron O'Connor, aye.
Pat Gales, aye.
Mark Rocket, aye. Kevin Keeble, aye.
Jonathan, yeah, I.
Mark Roberts, aye.
James, I.
I'm
How about
going
you
first.
today,
It
Gail?
is.
I've been going around this way. One.
Well, you bet.
I just want to be
She's
facing the
going
other way.
clockwise as opposed to.
Where you play cards.
So the question is whether, I just realized I said this, but I don't know, can trustees be on the fundraising committee because they're not on the building?
Why not?
Or not, the outreach committee, could,
I don't see why not.
okay.
Can't be on the outreach committee.
They're not, it's a subcommittee of the building
Oh,
committee.
I see. It's-
Oh, I see, and so the
Well-
trustees,
Why don't we make that committee a subcommittee of the trustees? or-
yes, because
It already
it's,
is.
it's,
The
it
outreach
already
committee
is, it already is
So then you could just report out here.
Certainly.
Yeah, great, perfect, thank you.
Great.
Done.
So there's gonna be a committee of one?
Two,
Two.
We already
Yeah,
did.
post-
Had a
We
committee.
started something. John.
and then things been changed.
So it's a public meeting, we can have public input, so others can attend and
Mhm,
participate.
that's the whole.
Right, yeah, so we've got it covered.
Honestly, it should be the trustees, in my opinion. They can do that, so.
On the outreach?
Yeah.
Because it's something that you want to continue.
Exactly.
And infinitum.
Exactly.
Yeah. we can
This
pass-
committee will eventually be dissolved, so.
Or not.
Oh, no, it'll be done.
Oh, the project's happening. We're moving in there, so.
I thought it was gonna be dissolved this past June.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Here we are.
Now, while we're talking about fundraising, I know grant writing, the grant is different. There's still a plan to meet with the grant writers out of Boston.
The Associated Grant Makers, so.
Yes,
What I need from this committee is they would like to potentially make a presentation to us about what their services offer, what they offer, how we can do it, whether we would want them to help write grants. Obviously, there's fees involved, but that's based on whether grants are funded or not. Or we want to write grants and build an administrative cost. But I think the biggest thing is for us all to get educated on what they can do
mhm,
and all the resources are out there. They're not trying to sell what they do because their job is to provide the services and resources, and more than half of their services and resources are free of charge, and we can do it ourselves with all the information they have. But if we're meeting almost every week, I'd like to have them come early October, because I'll be away the last couple weeks of September. either in person or by Zoom, and make a presentation to us, so that we're all up to speed on everything we need to think about and do for grants.
It would have to be before October 10th.
I can set it up probably that first week in October, the first, I'm coming back the 28th.
Is there a fee for the presentation?
No.
So I think that would be, that gives us time to talk about what kind of fundraising the building committee would want to do. What's the, not fundraising, I'm sorry, grant writing. For
Yeah,
what purpose for the building, because the trustees may want to do grant writing related to library programs and other kinds of things that are not structural, like, I just want
no, that's long term as
to
well.
come back to that, but I
Right,
think
so-
we want to be careful with what.
But I think it could benefit both sides of the community.
This would give me a chance to hear from all of you at different meetings, and we could just throw it on the agenda each time. You know, ideas for grants, and anything and everything is possible. Because some may be short term, some may be long term, some may be programming for 5 years out. Whatever it is, the more we have, the better I have of a list to take to them before we meet with them. So nothing is too small, nothing is too crazy, I guess. Is what I'm saying.
So if you want to meet after you get back, Jonathan, the 3rd of October is the first Thursday.
If we're meeting on Thursdays, that's what I will try to book.
And then the next Thursday would be the 10th.
Right,
And we're cruising.
assuming we're booking on, as a rule, Thursdays, either 1, 2, or 3 o'clock. I'll reach out to them tomorrow and see if we can get them to lock it in.
Would that be an afternoon meeting?
Yes,
I'm at UMass Amherst for my conference that week, but I will be back here by 1 o'clock.
okay.
So,
And if you have ideas anyway, Jim, if you just
Mhm.
share them, we can throw them into the mix.
yeah, you don't have to worry about me attending, but I would like to be there.
Okay.
So the members of the fundraising committee, that's gonna be Ron, me, Mark, and Mark.
Thank you.
After 6 o'clock. Next agenda item is proposed warrant article to reclassify special article 8. At the special town meeting 11/16/20 renovation to apply to 207 Main Street.
Yeah,
They open the warrants up.
they opened about, that actually came about a meeting we had yesterday, and Serena, she knew exactly language, should rescind and reclassify, okay, great, so that's, I'll get with that, run it probably by interim TA for CPS and E. Sure. And then I'll bring it to the committee.
So that takes that $89,000 out of use for the Carnegie building
Yes, it would.
and put it into this budget.
Yes.
Because of the language was,
Well, it's, the line
doesn't it say Dyson Public Library?
Yes.
Yes, and the special article was voted on November 16th, 2020. And there's a note that somebody put in, not for 207 Main Street.
And that,
Right,
Yeah.
but I don't want to, as long as the note's there, I don't want it, yeah.
so when that went through, the intent was for the building, for that building and not for 207 Main Street, because that building needed work. And then some work has been done there. Correct?
Out of that article,
Yeah.
the only thing that was expended was engineering and architectural services, which you missed last week. I have on my shelf downstairs, the full report for a almost $300,000 ramp, door, new front stairs, et cetera. So that's why I didn't go anywhere.
Okay. So it's like not enough money to do anything, right?
Mhm.
Because one of the things you're gonna get is people in town want that building to be functional.
Mhm.
And that, so that they understand that it's being transferred, it's not enough. Because I know a couple of people that will say, but we want that building open.
That's,
Yeah.
So I think there, from that perspective, in terms of not being enough, Jim is the building commissioner and what it would take, and me as the ADA coordinator, and what it would take, both of us.
Yeah.
Could easily stand up there and make a case, why not? And remind people that this $89,000 is, we lost 87.5 because one of our grants was cut in half. So if that had not occurred, we might not be asking for this, but it's still for the library. That's the other part of the argument.
It's back to, for that special town meeting, we need to be prepared to say why we need it. Because If we don't,
Yeah.
we shouldn't be asking for it.
Right.
Just leave it there for that building. If we do, we have to be able to say why.
Well, then there's also the wording, of it, so let's just, for the sake of argument, if we were to hypothetically leave it there and not touch it, and then that's no longer the DPL.
Right.
That is the article, says to be used for the DPL, it's not,
Yeah.
so
Well,
that's the other
the
side.
lawyers could probably fight that out and say, what was the intent, was for the building?
Town accountant's the only one, there's only.
Yeah.
She will allow you to use those funds.
Exactly, yeah.
So,
Okay.
but you raise a good point, because there could be another facet of this town who would want to repurpose that article to ensure they could use it from the Carnegie building.
Right,
Uh-huh.
So it's important, it's an important
When
point.
you change the language and put 395 Main Street instead of DPL.
Right.
And that's why I think it's so important to remind people at that point, that's it, our earmark was cut in half. Not by our own choices, but by this.
yeah. Yeah,
That
yeah.
much.
So do we need to do anything with that today?
No.
I can't remember, should we talk about that this was a trustees issue to recommend or building committee, or do we not? I don't know if we-
It came at the last meeting, and I would usually recommend it was the
Trustees.
The trustees, yeah.
So we'd have to put in a request, or can it just happen? Does it need to be a formal request from the trustees to change it, or can it just come from building commissioner?
No,
Well, someone would have to present it.
yeah, so representative, I have no, the
You don't
trustees
have
and
to say it.
stewards in the library, so.
I think once the article, once he has the wording of the article, then the trustees will vote on it.
And then we'd have to be the one to speak to it.
And then the selectmen have to agree to
Yeah.
put it on the warrant. They can
This is
disagree.
different, okay. But we need to be prepared to be there to explain why we need it, or why we're
So
proposing
if
to change it.
the board of selectmen decide not to put it on the warrant, then what?
You have to get signatures.
But you do raise a good point that whenever I talk about the new library, people have questions, it's always, when's it opening, it's gonna be great, but then people always say, what's gonna happen with the old building? That's a very common
Right,
thread in the conversations.
And we're going into a fiscal year where we are already at a deficit of close to $600,000.
Right.
So,
And did you not say in a meeting that at this point there are no plans for that building?
well, that depends on who you talk to.
Now you can go to the meeting, you can't go to the special, sorry.
I can't go to the special town meeting.
considering I'm the one who issues occupancy, I'm unaware of any use for that building.
That's a good point. But I've already talked to them.
Next agenda item, Plan B, construction payment contract, we just discussed the
I'm sorry.
cost.
Yeah. So yeah, I went through it almost line for line earlier, so it looks like Plan B is being fair with us, they're in line with their contract obligations for hourly rates. I have quantified the work that was done, the people that are represented on the invoice were actually there doing work, so I don't have any issue endorsing the invoice for submittal. Obviously, it needs to come from this body.
So is it the building committee or the library trustees, or is it both that we're going on this?
I believe the special article was, I think it's both. I think it's both, because we're in control of the project, so to speak, and then the trustees are in control of expending funds, so I think it's both.
Just be safe, good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, it does require a selectmen, because it's special, it requires a second signature anyway, so just to be
Right.
safe, we could say it's voted on by both.
So I'll entertain a motion to approve the invoice that we got from Plan B in the amount of $21,240.71. A motion for that.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? I'll call for a vote. We're gonna go this way.
It was a
Tavares, aye.
Jonathan Gale,
Campuchico, aye.
Mark Crockett got it.
Pat Hales, aye.
Motion passes.
Yes.
So I'll entertain a motion to approve the Plan B payment as presented.
Go ahead.
I move that we approve Plan B construction payment of $21,240.71.
I second.
Any discussion? We'll vote. Ron O'Connor, aye.
And Maxon, I.
Rita Russo, aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Approval of the minutes of August 22nd, 2024. Everybody have an opportunity to review the minutes.
Thank you. Good job.
Any concerns? Entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Not call for a vote, starting with Ron.
Ron O'Connor, aye.
Yes, it's me.
You were quick enough. Not
I was being respectful.
Surprise.
Can't repeat the line.
Jonathan Taylor, aye.
Mark Torrance, aye.
David Van, aye.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion for the trustees.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes of the August 22nd, 2024 meeting.
I second.
Any discussion? Vote. Ron O'Connor, aye.
And Maxon.
Rita Russo, aye.
Motion passes.
Next meeting, I don't know what the date is, next Thursday.
September 1st.
You want to meet next Thursday and at 3 o'clock? Is that time good for everybody? It may not be good for me. Depends. So you want it earlier?
Let's go. For any interviews that day, circulation, pretty much all.
Well, is there anything that do we have anything between now and next Thursday that's pressing that we need to, that we do need to make before we have a long weekend coming?
We won't have to vote on another payment, will we? Because that is just covered.
He's gonna charge us, send us an invoice every 2 weeks.
Okay, so that's
So we,
covered.
right. And that would give me extra time to get some pricing together for the ramps. It might not be a bad idea to slip a week. If you're so inclined.
Yeah,
I'm wondering if we could
September
just,
12th.
I was wondering if we just get an email that did something real simple.
Really wants a spreadsheet.
Okay. No, because I was thinking the same thing about frequency of meetings, and sometimes it may just be updates.
That'll
rather
give you
than-
time to get these done too.
Yes.
Just like that. I can make it square.
3
They're
o'clock.
about,
On the 12th,
12th.
Do you want to,
isn't that trustees?
for October
Our
3rd,
trustees
do you want to
is-
have Jonathan get those people for the presentation?
Could make our trustees
Yeah, I think
meeting
we shall.
immediately
Tomorrow,
after.
so we can't set up.
And it might be soon, you said, but that's right.
But we could make it the following week. if not. Let's do the following week.
And
Sorry,
October 3 o'clock.
we can talk about that.
Okay, sounds good.
I have to, we have trustees
October
on there.
3rd.
So October 3rd, it'll be from 3 o'clock to Jonathan. Yeah. So
October 3rd.
Right.
Okay. My school's the following week, I'm sorry. The 10th was, that's not available. Okay. Yeah, I'm here all week.
All right.
So what week was that?
So the next, our next meeting is September 12th at 3 o'clock. That's good.
Okay.
It's good week.
Yes.
Anything else? If not, I'll entertain a motion. I see, you going to say something, Ron? No? Anything else?
Trying to be quiet so we can move on. Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second. Roll call vote, start with Ron.
Ron O'Connor, aye.
Jenny Tiger, aye.
Laura, second. Charlie Geller.
Okay, take a vote. Talk guy.
That feels,
Passes.
Say the meeting to adjourn the trustees.
I make a motion to adjourn the trustees meeting.
Second,
It will vote. Ron O'Connor, aye.
and Maxon.
Rita Russo, aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Okay, don't know that.
I'm not.